Welcome to the Storm Journey channel. Today, we'll explore the 10 most devastating floods in recent history, events that not only caused massive destruction in terms of lives and property, but also left lasting impacts on society. In the face of an increasingly unpredictable climate, these floods serve as stark reminders of nature's power and the importance of being prepared for disasters. In 2011, Thailand faced one of the longest and most severe floods in its history, spanning nearly 6 months from July to December. This disaster was triggered by an unusually intense monsoon season. Heavy rainfall in northern Thailand led to floodwaters moving south, eventually submerging Bangkok, the nation's capital. Over 65 of Thailand's 77 provinces were affected. Bangkok, the country's economic and political hub, was hit particularly hard, forcing millions to evacuate. More than 13 million people were impacted, with 800 lives lost, and damages exceeding $45 billion. Numerous factories, industrial zones, and key infrastructure were devastated, causing massive economic losses. This flood exposed significant shortcomings in Thailand's drainage and urban planning systems. In response, the government began implementing major flood management improvements to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. In the Indian state of Bihar, the Kosi River, often called the Sorrow of Bihar, has a long history of flooding due to sediment buildup and river course shifts. In 2008, heavy rainfall caused the Kosi River to overflow, engulfing entire villages. Floodwaters spread rapidly, submerging hundreds of villages and isolating many areas. Rescue teams had to deliver food and supplies by helicopter to the stranded population. Over 2.3 million people were affected, with 500 fatalities, and more than 1 million people displaced. Roads were washed away, telecommunications failed, and the economic losses were immense. This flood highlighted the need for stronger river embankments and flood management in Bihar. In response, the state government started investing in disaster, preparedness, and infrastructure. In 2010, Pakistan experienced one of its worst monsoon seasons in recorded history, resulting in the Indus River flooding. The disaster spread across much of the country and lasted for months. Flooding extended from the northern regions of Gilgit-Baltistan to the southern province of Sindh, disrupting supply chains and devastating entire communities. The flood affected 20 million people, claiming 2,000 lives and causing economic losses of approximately $43 billion. Pakistan's agricultural sector was hit hard, triggering a major food crisis. This flood highlighted the importance of resilient infrastructure and agricultural systems. Pakistan began seeking international aid to support its recovery efforts and to build disaster management capacities. In late August 2005, Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast of the United States, bringing powerful winds and torrential rains. The hurricane's storm surge overwhelmed New Orleans' levee system. The floodwaters from the Gulf of Mexico poured over the levees, submerging 80% of New Orleans. Neighborhoods were destroyed, leaving the city in ruins. Over 1,800 people lost their lives, and the economic damages were estimated to be more than $125 billion. New Orleans took years to recover from the devastation. Katrina exposed the vulnerabilities of coastal cities to extreme weather and led to major reforms in disaster response and infrastructure design in the United States. After weeks of heavy summer rain, major rivers in Central Europe, such as the Elbe and Danube, overflowed, causing widespread flooding in Germany, Austria, and the Czech Republic. Thousands of people were evacuated, especially in cities like Dresden and Prague. Rescue teams worked tirelessly to protect buildings and cultural landmarks. 10 people lost their lives, with damages amounting to nearly $16 billion. Critical infrastructure was also significantly impacted. This flood led European governments to collaborate on climate resilience and urban planning, emphasizing water management and flood prevention systems. In 2007, heavy rains across Africa led to some of the worst floods in the continent's history, affecting 14 countries from Ghana to Sudan. Massive floods submerged large areas, isolating thousands of villages. Without adequate transportation and rescue systems, many communities were left to fend for themselves. Over 1 million people lost their homes, and extensive farmland was destroyed, sparking a food crisis. This disaster exposed the need for sustainable agriculture and disaster preparedness in Africa. International aid organizations responded with financial and food assistance to help countries recover. In July 2021, record-breaking rains hit China's Henan province, with the city of Zhengzhou being the hardest hit. The rain, which lasted for more than 3 days, brought unprecedented rainfall. Zhengzhou saw nearly 617 millimeters of rain in just a few days. Floodwaters quickly overwhelmed streets, subway systems, and tunnels, trapping hundreds of people. More than 300 people lost their lives, and the economic losses exceeded $17 billion. Millions were evacuated, and schools, hospitals, and infrastructure suffered extensive damage. This flood underscored the importance of resilient urban planning and climate-adaptive infrastructure in China, prompting the government to invest in early warning systems and flood protection. South Asia frequently experiences monsoon-related floods, but in 2017, the scale and intensity of rainfall reached record levels, affecting Bangladesh, Nepal, and India. Major rivers like the Brahmaputra and Ganges overflowed, submerging vast areas and isolating millions. With infrastructure cut off, providing aid to rural areas became challenging. 45 million people were affected, with thousands of deaths and millions of people displaced. Crop failures triggered food shortages across the region. This disaster highlighted the need for effective regional policies on disaster management. International and local governments began focusing on early warning systems and building flood-resistant infrastructure. Jakarta, Indonesia's capital, is prone to flooding due to its low-lying location. In early 2020, prolonged heavy rains overwhelmed the city's drainage systems, causing severe flooding. The floods inundated residential and commercial areas, forcing thousands to evacuate. In some parts of the city, water levels rose over a meter, making rescue operations challenging. 66 people lost their lives, and thousands were displaced. The floods caused widespread damage to homes, businesses, and public services. In response, Indonesia's government announced plans to relocate the capital to a less flood-prone area, highlighting the importance of sustainable city planning in vulnerable regions. Just a year after the 2010 floods, Pakistan was once again struck by devastating floods in 2022 due to prolonged and intense monsoon rains. Climate change played a significant role in intensifying these monsoon patterns. The floods spread across northern and southern Pakistan, submerging towns and villages, destroying infrastructure and cutting off essential supplies. Over 1,700 people were killed, millions lost their homes, and economic losses reached billions of dollars. Pakistan's agricultural lands were severely impacted, leading to a food shortage and humanitarian crisis. This disaster emphasized the urgency of addressing climate change impacts, especially for vulnerable countries. Pakistan sought international assistance and began improving its disaster management infrastructure. From South Asia to the Americas, these floods remind us of nature's force and the rising threat of climate change. Subscribe for more stories and insights on nature's powerful events.